it's slightly dangerous terrain, but I can throw one thought out. I looked into this some years ago when the statues started coming down in 2020. And there are some places where I think there was like very weird overreach, and I can understand some places where some locals might have like got resentful about that. If you go to Monument Avenue in Richmond, there are no monuments. It's just an avenue with a lot of like stone bases on which you could put a statue at some point, but there aren't. If you're into plinths, it's a great place. Just a lovely place. And in fact, the only statue that is still there is, what's his name, Arthur Ashe, the tennis player.
Arthur Ashe?
Yeah, so there's a big statue of him, it's the only one still standing, and he's got a child kneeling there with a book, and he's got the tennis racket up, and unfortunately it looks like he's about to beat the child. But it's just, I can...
British author and cultural firestarter Douglas Murray was part of a strong panel led by seasoned broadcaster Bill Maher, who has a sharp sense of humor and a taste for controversy to discuss the chaos of the modern world. Together, they tackled controversial subjects, including the resistance to revisiting history and the intricate relationship between economic injustice and public health policy. Beyond the news, their conversation delved into the cultural differences tearing society apart, Murray's candid critique of recent political and cultural shifts, and Maher's sharp takedown of ideological dogma was a masterclass in cutting through the noise. It wasn't your typical roundtable banter, but rather a clash of ideas that illustrated how hard it is to find common ground in a culture ruled by extremes. Despite the discomfort, it also served as a reminder of the necessity of facing challenging truths. From their uninhibited perspective, the discussion went beyond simple talk. At a time when conflict and distraction are common, it acted as a wake-up call for meaningful, informed dialogue. Where do we go from here? We'll have to wait and see.
My point is, I can understand if I were a local, I might have got a bit annoyed about this. Yeah.
But I think it's worth remembering that the Confederacy celebrated slave owning, and these statues weren't built during the Confederacy.
Sure.
They were built when the Jim Crow laws were being enforced and segregation was really being enforced. So I think we need to know our history and honor our history, but I can understand how it would be tough to live in a town that is celebrating people who really thought that slavery was a great thing.
Well, everybody thought that, by the way. I mean, I agree. Now, first of all, to re-put the statue up?
No, that's
sure. Great. I mean,
But you can do what museums call retain and explain. I mean, you say we need to know our history. How are people going to know their history if there's no statues representing anything that happened except for one side? I mean, in most countries, like France, for instance, France said in 2020, the president himself said, we will take down no statues, we need to know all of our history. And that's
in the Soviet Union, should they have kept the statues of Marx and Lenin up after Russia became a republic?
They did. I've been to them. Lots of the former Soviet republics put all the statues in a park, for instance, where you could then go to look at them. And that's
a museum would be great.
Right, it is.
But a lot of the statues we're talking about are not explanations, they're venerations.
Sure, celebrations. Exactly.
And if they're celebrating, as you just spoke so eloquently to, if they're celebrating things like slavery and the Confederacy, then I think it's worth having a conversation about whether they belong.
A contentious debate over how history is written and whose values truly influence society has been triggered by the plan to rename Virginia schools previously named after Confederate figures. Many people view this move as a backlash against diversity, fairness, and inclusion, as it cuts to the heart of a significant cultural divide. Should we honor the past or reconsider it in light of modern ideals? The author Eric Schlosser draws attention to a crucial detail. Most Confederate memorials on school campuses were not erected during the Civil War, but rather during the Jim Crow era when segregation and racial supremacy were enforced. They were not built to honor history, but functioned as tools of oppression. Instead of glorifying the past, Douglas Murray and Bill Maher advocate for its preservation for educational purposes. They argue that erasing history eliminates the context required to understand our progress and aspirations for the future. At its core, this argument is about more than just names. It's about the battle to reconcile a tumultuous past with modern ideals. How can we preserve history while acknowledging its most sinister facets? The nation remains polarized and unsettled by this difficult balancing act.
And they were traitors.
And they were traitors.
They were traitors. This was
they
a
were-
war
they were-
against a secessionist.
Yeah, but people also have to remember, I mean, look, there are obviously cases like that, where, like Stonewall Jackson, I don't think you particularly need to have a school named after. But, don't forget in 2020, this rampage went all the way through to any high school named after Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
Well, so there's
yeah,
a logic,
right.
and it can get out of hand. But
And it got out of
I
hand
hope-
very fast.
You were talking about what might happen with the Trump administration. I hope that we're not going to have in Monument Valley the January 6th insurrectionists and what was the guy with the horns? Statues of those rebels.
I could see.
But he will get them out of jail.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
He will pardon them.
But I mean, again, on the slavery thing, don't put up statues of traitors who supported slavery, but also teach kids the truth.
Yeah.
Slavery was a horrible thing that everybody in the world did, including people of color in other parts of the world. It's all through the Bible. Every civilization did it. They didn't even think it was wrong. There's no laws against it in the Bible. There's a lot of laws about it, and nobody ever goes, oh, maybe we should just not do it. Never crossed their mind.
Right.
Again, teach the whole story would be my thing.
absolutely.
Throughout the panel debate, history education took center stage with the unmistakable message that everything should be taught, including the unpleasant parts. We cannot overlook the harsh realities of the past or systemic injustices like slavery if we wish to comprehend where we are today. Monuments should be preserved as contextualized lessons rather than as symbols of pride, according to Douglas Murray. His argument suggests that these monuments should be placed in museums, where they can be surrounded by historical truth and facilitate honest conversations. In this way, we confront the past directly rather than ignoring it. Tracing. The past won't fix problems, but being aware of it does. By presenting history in a nuanced, honest way, we give societies the opportunity to confront their past, mend old wounds, and build a more informed, unified future. Comfort is not the same as good teaching. Focusing on the truth is the only way to achieve real progress.
Contribute, or tiered economy, contribute to people's sense of grievance. Oh, yeah, that's in your book.
Yeah, no, I write a lot about that in the book. I think one of the things that's happened to us is our economy has become such an engine of envy, right? Our service economy is tiered in a fine-grained way that it never was before. When I was a teenager and I went to a rock concert, I remember getting up at 3 a.m. and going to the Hartford Civic Center, that's what it was called at the time.
Who were you seeing? I have to know.
Queen. And I'll tell you, right, but here's the thing, there were basically 3 sets of seats. There were 3 ticket prices.
Right.
And if you wanted to sit, as I did, close to the stage, I got 8th row, what you did wasn't shell out $10,000 or more as people do for one of the like 250, 350 prices for a Taylor Swift ticket. You actually went in a quasi-egalitarian way and you stood outside online. Got into the 8th row, caught Freddie Mercury's tambourine when he threw it out at the end of the show. Those were.
I still got it.
So what happens? You know, I ended up losing it over time, which is a terrible
Suddenly
story.
it's the Kelly Clarkson show.
But you take the Taylor Swift concerts as an example, right? People are paying so many different prices, and then they are going on their social media feeds and they're posting pictures of how close to the stage they were. Sometimes it's a family of 6. You're looking at $10,000 shelled out for one evening.
Sure.
We are more aware of the people who live on the echelon above us, the echelon above them, the echelon above that. It is in our faces in social media all the time, and I think it fills us with envy and drives us apart. It's part of our grievance culture.
Yes.
The panel's analysis of economic inequality and grievance culture resonated, exposing how social media exacerbated wealth gaps are fueling resentment and division. Frank Rooney used real-world examples to support his arguments, such as the outrageous price of Taylor Swift concert tickets. The issue isn't just costly entertainment. It symbolizes a distorted economy where only the wealthy can access certain luxuries, and exclusion breeds animosity. Social media further fuels the fire. The constant display of wealth, prestige, and status at the top makes everyone else feel left out and behind. This ever-widening gap is not only painful, but is also creating rifts in society, turning economic inequality into a daily frustration. The discussion revealed one undeniable truth. Commercial culture and wealth disparity are distorting how we see ourselves and each other, threatening social cohesion and negatively impacting mental health. It's time to reflect on what we can tolerate and how these frameworks affect our lives. If you appreciate this kind of analysis and would like to see more unbiased perspectives on political, social, and cultural issues, please hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to ensure you don't miss anything. And let's carry on this conversation.